Good evening. Tonight in this country, 3 separate nuclear facilities are in danger, 2 of them because of floodwaters, 1 of them because of fire. At the Los Alamos National Lab in New Mexico, there's now a mandatory evacuation of the city in effect. 12,000 people on the move because of the fire burning less than a mile away from the facility, which, as you may know, has always been shrouded in secrecy. And the flooding in the upper plains, which has shattered records dating back to the 1800s, has surrounded now a nuclear plant in Nebraska and threatens another. All of this while the suffering and the high water remain in Minot, North Dakota. We have all these fronts covered tonight. We want to begin with this situation in Los Alamos. NBC's Janet Shamlian is there tonight to start us off. Janet, good evening.
Hi, Brian. This has grown much more serious just within the last few hours as the flames are now within striking distance of this town and the winds have picked up considerably. Out on the road, cars are backed up for miles trying to get out of here as those evacuations are now mandatory for everyone.
The fast-moving fire swelled overnight, burning 68 square miles and destroying at least 30 structures. Late today, a mandatory evacuation was ordered, and traffic was bumper to bumper as people tried to get out of town. Los Alamos Laboratory shut down. Officials insist all hazardous and radioactive materials are protected and secure from the wildfires for now.
I will not say it is not going to go in the lab. We're doing our best to keep it off the laboratory.
But a worst-case scenario loomed in the mind of residents, scrambling to evacuate.
Kind of make you nervous with all this nuclear stuff around.
It's a little close for comfort. I'd say that for sure.
Los Alamos is famous as home to the Manhattan Project, where scientists developed the first atomic bomb. Today, the massive complex includes 2,000 buildings spread out over 36 square miles.
Obviously, our priority is to protect a national asset here, protect the facility, but also we're concerned about the welfare of our 10,000 plus employees.
The lab will be closed once again tomorrow. Right now, one of the fires is on its southwestern border. Brian?
All right, Janet Shamlian keeping an eye on things. 2 other nuclear facilities in the news tonight. But in the northern plains, the problem, the threat to the plants comes from water and not fire. It's important to remember, first of all, there are over 100 active nuclear facilities in the United States. These 2 plants are under threat because of flooding along the Missouri River. Water broke through a barrier at Fort Calhoun Nuclear Power Plant near Omaha. Then downriver, waters are also rising around the Cooper Station plant. NBC's Mike Taibbi is in Fort Calhoun, Nebraska tonight. Mike, good evening.
Good evening, Brian. In fact, this is the biggest threat just from flooding that a nuclear power plant in this country has ever faced. And in fact, you should say it's 2 plants. This one at Fort Calhoun, which was shut down back in April for refueling, and the one at Cooper Station about 80 miles south of here near the town of Brownville. But federal and local authorities agree that neither plant is in immediate danger.
The way it's laid out there looks like it's going to be challenging.
The Fort Calhoun nuclear plant is now virtually an island. Early Sunday morning, an aqua berm, sort of a huge inner tube filled with water that had been built to help shield the facility from the rising Missouri River, collapsed and failed. But the berm was only a secondary safety net. Floodwaters would have to rise an unlikely 8 feet higher for key buildings to be threatened. And if that happens, additional emergency measures are in place.
Despite some of these challenges, fundamentally, we don't believe that the plant is posing any immediate threat to public health and safety.
80 miles downriver, the Cooper Nuclear Station continues to operate at full capacity. NRC officials toured this facility yesterday and say it's safe, though the floodwaters only began to recede after coming within inches of the level that would have required a plant shutdown. But most of the concerns have been about Fort Calhoun, which the NRC cited last year as failing to maintain procedures for combating a significant flood. So before this flood, additional watertight doors and barriers were installed on all buildings, and more pumps and sandbagging equipment were positioned on site.
This is not business as usual. You don't build these aqua berms in order to have them destroyed. That said, I think the prospects of a significant release of radiation into the environment are still very slim.
The reactor, one of the country's smallest, is now in what's called safe cold shutdown mode. And this plant might have to stay in shutdown mode for weeks and maybe even months until the floodwaters recede. Nearly 1 million people live within 50 miles of this plant, nearly half of those in the city of Omaha, 20 miles south of here. So far, there have been no evacuations. Brian?
Mike Taibbi tonight from Fort Calhoun in Nebraska. Mike.